whatever, all the good conferences. He's going to talk about cyber war, and his talk is called "Let Me Stuxnet You."
Thank you. Thank you guys for being here. My name is Isaac. I'm a CTO of a company, Security Art. It's a consulting company. And as part of my job, I do go to meet with CSOs and CISOs of different companies and organizations. And when the Stuxnet issue became public, one of the questions I asked them was, how's your organization or company is going to handle Stuxnet? And the reaction I got was, none of the CSOs and CISOs understood that Stuxnet is not an actual specific threat. It's a state of mind. It's a cyber weapon that today goes to this direction and tomorrow will get to that direction. And to better emphasize the point, I made this presentation. Now, a few guidelines about the presentation. I will try to keep it as simple as possible. One of the misconceptions of the industry is that in order to create a Stuxnet or a similar threat to Stuxnet, you have to be a uber guru in security and have an army of people working for you. So I'm going to try to break this myth, and I'm going to show that pretty much anybody in this room can make a similar threat to Stuxnet using everyday utilities. And this is one of the concepts of the presentation. I will not do some hardcore assembly or write my own tools. Again, it will defy the purpose, and the CSO will say to me, okay, so you are an expert, you can do it, but nobody else can. So let's begin. So what really is Stuxnet, in a way, is a software that exploits hardware. It's attacking the hardware in many different ways. Could be used to read back wrong information, and could do it to take another step and damage the actual hardware. The idea here is that we're exploiting the complicated relationship between a software and hardware, the way they're working together, the way they're programmed to do job together. And we're going to introduce some malicious intention in both the software that runs on the computer, the system that operates the hardware, and in the software that runs within the hardware, hence the firmware. So today is a country that attacks a country. It's cyber warfare. It's big. It's between nations. But tomorrow is going to be pretty much down to earth and down to a company versus a company. And we will see just a few of the actors in this kind of threat and why they will do such things. But it's important to remember that cyber warfare, as a definition, is a G2G. It's a government to government. So we're going to address a subgroup into it, which is called industrial cyber warfare. So the first question that we must ask ourselves is, okay, can a software actually damage an hardware? So the answer is yes. It can, from pretty much 3 basic principles, which I will quickly go over with. The first one is that software controls the hardware and can make it perform some damaging operations. For instance, your computer has a hard drive in it. And the reason your computer is not trying to fuck up with your hard drive is because there is no such program to do so. Doesn't mean it won't have such a program in the future that will try to crash your hard drive. We're going to see an example of it. The second idea is the software can damage another software that runs or operates on hardware, a firmware, for instance. Most of the devices, the smartphones, the PDAs, and even the CD-ROM drive, for instance, they do feed off a software. And this software then, in turn, can be modified, can be changed to create an actual sabotage in it. And the third idea is that software controls the hardware and can make it perform operation that will be damaging to another hardware. Maybe it's not always possible to directly attack the hardware. Maybe we need to do some collateral damage, to do some other effects on the system, and as a result, the system will get damaged. So I will pretty much try to go over examples for all 3 of those, and I will be happy to hear more examples and more ideas from you. So As I said in the beginning, I'm not going to talk about the Stuxnet, the actual Stuxnet, and I'm going to talk about the cyber warfare as a concept, because this is a government-to-government problem, and it's something that people in the military and the government needs to handle. I'm going to talk about something that's going to affect our life, our companies, and our organization. So, first, like I said, cyber warfare is not limited or designed to hit critical infrastructure. It's not like if I don't have a SCADA, I don't have a problem. It just means that if I don't have a SCADA, I have computers in my company, printers, Cisco equipment, whatever. These can be targeted for the new Stuxnet, the Stuxnet for my corporate. The second thing is, what will really be the outcome of such attack? You can say, okay, so I write a virus, a malware that destroys a company's Cisco router. Doesn't sound so alarming. Well, it might not sound so alarming at the beginning, but if you judge the overall outcome of such operation, for instance, if you take a company and at the same day you take down all their routers worldwide, you basically have an operational setback. The company cannot communicate. The branches are isolated and they cannot exchange email between themselves. Now this is a problem. And this problem can produce, again, financial loss for the company, and we will examine a scenario for such instance, and operational loss. Of course, somebody has to come and fix it and replace it, and has to call the company and buy maybe another router or another equipment. This whole thing puts the company in a spin that it eventually will cost her money, this way or another. So this is a very good motivation, in the same way that when hackers or when fraudsters discover the online banking and they started making Trojans to handle this segment. They say, okay, we're not interested to take over your PC, we're just going to take over your bank account. The same thing happens here. These malwares won't be interested in changing the wallpaper or checking how much money they have in their bank account. They will be more interested about trying to make them lag behind and deal with IT problems instead of pushing products or doing whatever the company has done. Some of the actors you can see in the cyber warfare world is logic bombs. I won't get into it, I will just say a quick word about it. A logic bomb is actually a piece of software, a backdoor in another software which can, in a way, defect or deperform the action of the real software. For instance, if you have a machine that's supposed to go, let's say, forward, the logic bomb could be to stop it or go backwards. Either way, it's something that can destroy the pipeline or can destroy a system. A permanent denial of service, this is mainly the method which I'm going to present today, different permanent denial of service attacks and what are the different outcomes. And of course, APT is a concept. I'm not going to get to the details. I'm just going to say that in the future, some APT is going to blow up in people's faces, literally blow up. So what is permanent denial of service? As opposed to its younger brother, denial of service, permanent denial of service is not intended to create a temporary problem. It's working on the same state of mind of taking a resource not available for use, but this time for a longer period. A PDoS is actually in its ideal, and what we are going to demonstrate and see will require from the vendor, from the target, to either reinstall or replace the hardware. So the damage that we are going to make through PDoS won't be something that a firewall could mitigate, and won't be something that could restarting the server could help. It's a real damage which needs to be replaced or reinstalled. We're going to see that the damage potential here is huge in terms of what can we attack. So basically PDoS, and we're going to see some different PDoS attacks, could be applicable starting from your iPad, your iPhone, your tablets, your smart PCs, all the way to supercomputers, network equipment, and whatnot. It's basically a semi-generic attack, and again, the potential, the grand scale here is big. Do you have any questions so far? Great. Okay, another step back to the business. Of course, if this is going to be a threat, there has to be a business behind it, and a business that will drive it. So who we have here in the map, we will go with first industrial espionage. Today, we already have companies that are trying to spy on different companies. It's not new. But tomorrow, they would like to make perhaps a more effective, active approach to it. Meaning, they would try not to understand what the other company is developing or what their go-to-market strategy. They will try to hold it back and not giving the opportunity to be able to execute the plan. Could be rival companies. I have a product, you guys have a product. My product is going to be first on the market. I have a better exposure. I have a better chance of selling it. So if I will try to sabotage your infrastructure and you won't be able to deliver it in time, I get to win. And it could be a matter of hours, a matter of days, a matter of weeks. Doesn't matter. As long as my product goes first, I'm winning. For the countries, okay, again, we're going back to the cyber warfare as a general. But here also we can see that an example, maybe some country don't like what you develop, maybe some country have issues with what your company is doing, so you can expect such attack coming from them as well. Terrorism, who doesn't like terrorism? Terrorism on all its different faces could be political, social agenda, could be your company involved in something that the people, for instance Anonymous or other group could be considered a threat, and they will use this method on your company. Could be revenge, could be an employee that you fired and is not happy about that. So you can do all sorts of funny stuff. He has passwords, he has access, he has some knowledge about the organization, and with a little go-to-market help and some utilities, he might be able to design something like that. Of course, the third option is blackmailing. Greed and power. Having something like that installed in a corporate, and then emailing them and saying, okay guys, this is the situation. We have all your infrastructure infected, and we can do some damage starting from now. If you won't pay us, we will start doing it one by one. Now, it's a very interesting situation because, again, either way, the company, even if it won't be the case, will have to divert from its usual doing everyday business into start investigating and checking whether it's true or not true. And I do believe that in most due diligence, the situation will be, let's pay the guys and hope they will drop dead. Okay, so up to this point, we had an introduction to the problem, the scope of the problem, who we're looking at, what we're looking at, and why we're going to do that. Let's get more technical and let's see what exactly is this attack working. Phlashing. Phlashing was already presented in 2008 in CanSec West, and the idea is very simple, very elegant. Almost every device is trying to be more generic. If you look about the, for instance, the smartphones market or the tablets market, you can see that most of the changes do appear in software. New operation system, new features, new widgets, new graphics. This means the CPU becomes more and more generic, and the software has more and more power and weight in the process. So, of course, the way to deliver a good software will be using some update mechanism. And a firmware update is a very preferable way. So, if you can update your iPad or your computer with a good legitimate firmware, how about you do it with a bad one? And the bad one could be a firmware that will try to then attack the hardware, or it can be even a corrupted firmware which will break the hardware. I mean, many people in different stages try to unlock iPhone and it's failed, versioning issues, hardware issues, the phone is bricked. So how about using the same idea as an attack vector? For instance, we'll have a CEO with his iPad going back to the office, getting back to his table, trying to connect his iPad to the computer to sync it with his latest meeting notes, and bang, the iPad is bricked, and all the information gone with it. The second technique is a more physical one, and we will get to see that there is a weight for physical effects here, because eventually we try to create a real damage, and this requires